Hey, this is Stu with the Military Investor Network, and I am here with David Gutierrez. What's up, man? How are you?
How's it going, buddy?
Good. Hey, I know recently you have completed a 1031 exchange. I'd like to talk to you kind of about that process and how you started and what you went through and what you learned. This series is called the request for information. So my request for information from you is, that process, the action steps that you took for the 1031 exchange. Kind of tell me, um, you know, what you do with the 1031 exchange, what the property was, and kind of your reasoning behind it, and kind of action steps you did to go through that process.
Sure, Sue. Well, first off, I appreciate you asking me to do this. And secondly, I think it's awesome what you've been doing with the website and just honored to be a part of it. So thank you for that. I would have to say that the first and most important step is to educate yourself. What I have found through the process, a lot of folks kind of have bits and pieces of the puzzle, but they don't have the full puzzle. And what I mean by that, I talked to a couple about, the 1031. I talked to a realtor that was selling my place about the 1031. And what I ended up having to do is hit the books. I went to different website resources like flipminter.com. I found to be an excellent resource, and found the 1031 exchange agent that I use. I actually found them through flipminter.com. Jack Shea was his name. He's got a number of videos. And I called a number of different folks, both in Colorado, and Jack is out in Florida, and just to get prices and just kind of get the team that I wanted to work with, and ended up settling on him. So like I said, you really have to do some research. There's a lot of ins and outs to the 1031, but if you get a good agent, they'll be able to really walk you through the process. So that was step one. Step two was, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt, but just kind of for everyone that maybe not know, just explain like what is a 1031 exchange, and why is it so good for us as investors?
Sure. So a 1031 exchange, the way that I used it, there's a number of ways to use it, but you basically take an investment property. It has to be an investment property. You sell it, and you can take the proceeds and reinvest them into other investment properties, and there's no tax. There's no tax against your capital gains. So it's a way just to effectively take property or other investment, sell it, and the proceeds then become tax-free, as long as there's a number of rules. I don't want to bog down the interview with the ins and outs of the rules. But there are a number of different ways you can use it. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to purchase houses. You can purchase it can be land. It can be, there could be different equities you can use it for. But the way I used it, I sold a rental property and ended up turning it and buying 3 rental properties from that one, and all tax-free. Assuming that there's a number of rules that you have to adhere to. And if you spend the entire amount, then that'll all be tax-free.
That's awesome, man. Congrats.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so kind of back to the steps. You talked with a bunch of people, got educated, decided to go with an agent who's savvy with doing the 1031 exchange, and then kind of what was next after that.
Yeah, and you also, once you're going through the education process, you want to make sure that you have your strategy. So one thing that I found, there are timelines also associated with the 1031. So basically, from the day you sell whatever property that you're going to use for the exchange, you have 45 days to identify the properties that you're going to purchase. And that's down to very specifically the address that you're going to purchase. And again, if it falls within the appropriate category of the rules on how you're going to use the 1031, that has to be identified by 45 days. Then you have 180 days total to close on those properties. So it behooves you to make sure you have the market and kind of a general sense for the houses that you want to purchase. Again, if this is houses that you're going to buy. But you want to have a pretty solid idea of the market you're going to go to and the types of houses. For me, it was the houses that I was going to buy. And so I had spoken pretty extensively with, I went the turnkey route. So I sold the property in Denver. It was a condo, and it was a good investment, but just with the market out there, it was a condo. So I was getting a couple $100 a month in cash flow, and realized that through the 1031 exchange, I could, I could buy 3 houses in Wisconsin and end up getting closer to, $1,200-$1,500 a month cash flow. Really was, but the process of finding where I wanted to do that, picking Wisconsin, finding the right company to work with, the turnkey company, and then actually moving forward on those deals were all things that I had to have sorted out, particularly in a hot market like Denver, because the houses there sell so quickly that you better have a really good idea, because that clock starts ticking as soon as your property sells.
Okay, yeah, that's super important. So 45 days to identify a property and then 180 to close.
That's right.
Okay, cool. Any other kind of important steps you think people should know before they kind of decide to go that route?
It's I just want to really emphasize a point that have as many ducks in a row as you can before you initiate the process. I just found that there were a number of roadblocks, and I'll tell you, this is the first time I've done this, and the learning experience has been incredible. But I think if I would have gone in cold and sold the property and then tried, well, you can't sell it before. You have to know you're going to use a 1031, because as soon as that house sells, that money goes directly into an escrow account. But you really want to make sure that you understand, or have a pretty good understanding of the process and how you're going to use the funds, where you're going to use them, the markets that you want to go to, the types of properties or whatever it is that you want to invest in, and just ensure that you have the rules down, because there are going to be a number of different people that think they have some pretty solid ideas on how these things happen. And I just came to find that the best resource was me Googling and reading and trying to figure this stuff out. That'd be really what I'd emphasize is the education piece.
Okay, cool, man. And then last question kind of with this is the rule of you have to buy, what is it? So when you sell a property, you have to buy a property of equal or more value, or is it the loan of the value, the loan of the?
No, so there's a couple different rules. What your 1031 exchange agent is going to have you do is fill out an ID letter. In that ID letter, you have a couple different options. You can choose if you're going to buy 3 properties. You just say, hey, I'm going to buy 3 properties. Check that box, and those can be the 3 properties you buy. You can check the box for the 200% rule, which basically says that what you acquire will not exceed 200% of the property that you sold. And then there's the 95% rule. Basically says if you identify 20 properties, you have to buy 19 of them. And then you just pick the rule that fits you best. But to your point, you have to keep in mind that, so in order to not be taxed, you have to use the full proceeds, and you have to buy a property that is of equal or greater value of the adjusted sale price. So what that means is give you real numbers for what we did, because it's easiest. But I had a condo that I owed $100,000 for, or I still owed $100,000 on. I sold it for $235,000. And the adjusted price, what that means is after you take out all closing costs, and so you could basically knock that price down a bit. So it ended up being, the adjusted sales price ended up being about $212,000. And so I netted about $111,000. What the stipulations then that follow are, I had to spend the full $111,000. And you also have to take on the same amount of money in a loan that you had before the sale. So for me, that was so that I found properties that once I completed the sales, that I'd owe at least $100,000 on a combined $100,000 on the properties that I chose. So basically, if you have a loan that is being satisfied through the sale, you can't then turn around and use your 1031 exchange to pay cash for a house. You have to figure out a way to have the same amount of money that you owe in a loan. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. Okay, cool. Well, dude, that's awesome, man, and I'm super stoked for you. It's such a great way to build your wealth, and tax free, right? So you basically took one property that was, in a hot market like Denver that, was cash flowing, but not really too much, maybe a couple $100s a month, and sold it, took all that equity, because it's a hot market, seller's market, and turned it into buying 3 properties with a ton more cash flow. And you just doubled or even tripled your net worth there in that transaction. It was all tax free. So pretty awesome, man. Great lesson for everyone out there. If you have properties that have increased a bunch in equity, it might be a good time to looking at doing a 1031 exchange and getting some more rental properties for you. So, hey, I appreciate it. Great discussion, and thanks for the lesson, man.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Okay, thanks, bud. See you.
All right, bye.